So, secret number one, you can build an app in just a few weeks by using a paste launch. And paste is P-A-C-D, a paste launch. So let's talk about what the heck that is. So most people think you need to be a fancy software engineer in order to build your own app. But actually, you can create apps by doing a paste launch and using logic-based software. And I want to show you exactly what I mean by this. So a paste launch is a series of 4 simplified versions of your app. So there's 4 letters in the paste launch, P-A-C-D, and each one of those letters represents a different version of your app. And as you go along from the P to the A to the C to the D, they get a little bit more complicated, right? They get less and less simplified, but you start with something very simple and then you get more and more complex. And if you're thinking, wait a minute, 4 different versions of my app, that sounds outrageous. That sounds like way too many versions. I don't have time for that. I just want to show you, I literally took this screenshot today. This is from today, and this is the Facebook app in the Apple store, the iTunes store. And Facebook is on version 133 of their app. And on top of that, the way that they put these out is they do 133.1, 133.2, 133.3. So really, it's been way, way more than 133. Really, we're looking at thousands of versions of their app. And so if you think that it's just going to be a one and done thing, it is not true. I just want to tell you that the paste launch has 4 different steps, 4 different versions, and that is normal. If you even look at some of the popular apps you use today, there are a lot. There are a lot of versions, and they're always running, always creating and making tweaks and updates. And you notice this. You notice when Facebook makes a change, right? So what I want to do is I want to show you what the first version of Google, Facebook, YouTube, maybe a couple sites that you've heard of. I want to show you what they look like when they first launched, because they teach us something really, really important about starting small. So this is what the first version of Facebook looked like when it first launched. Does anyone remember this? Throw in the chat if you remember this. You're like, I remember this. If you remember what the first version of Facebook looked like. Yeah. So first version of Facebook, it was super, super bare bones and simple. I want to point out a couple things. First of all, it was only available to people who were at Harvard University. They didn't try to launch it to everyone and anyone. It was only one school. It didn't even launch just for college students. It was one school, right? Also, they had the name The Facebook. They didn't even have their finalized name. So for those of you who are nitpicking about what to call your startup, it doesn't matter. You can change it later, right? They changed their name from The Facebook to Facebook. There's all sorts of things. There's typos in here. The is capitalized here, but not up here. And pretty much all you could do was search for your school, create a login, and poke people. That was pretty much all you could do. This is not the first thing that you need to build. This is actually more complex than the first thing that you need to build, all right? You don't need to build anything anywhere near this fancy for the first version of your app. So I'll show you another example. Here's what the first version of Twitter looked like when they first launched. Anyone remember this? So Twitter launched as an SMS text service. So it wasn't even the web app or a mobile app that we think of today. When Twitter launched, it was you typed in what your tweet was, your Twitter update, and it sent a text to your friends letting them know what you wrote, right? You do not have to launch with something fancy. And in fact, you don't even have to launch with something as fancy as this. So when you think about your app's journey and the paste launch it needs to be on, I want to walk you through step by step what these things are, what all the steps are. So step 1, you need to come up with the idea. Type in the chat if you're like, yep, I've done step 1 already. Step 1, you can just type in step 1, or I came up with the idea. If you already know what kind of idea you want to pursue, type in the chat, say, yep, I got step 1. A lot of you guys have already done step 1. Nice. So then, okay, I see lots of step 1. Some people have no idea, but a lot of people are like, yep, check, done. And if you don't have your idea yet, I'm just showing you clearly on the map that that's the first thing you need to do. Then you're going to move to step 2, and this is when the PACD of the PACE launch begins. So step 2 is to puppet your app. The P stands for puppet. So you don't need to have all sorts of fancy technology when you first launch. There are some pieces of technology that you do need, but the P is for puppet. And we're going to talk about this in more detail, what it looks like. What does that even mean to puppet an app? Step 3 is to automate. So you're going to automate it. Step 4 is to custom build it. And then step 5, then you get to make a decision about what to do next when it comes to, all right, I'm going to now hire a CTO and we're going to switch and use code now, right? You might make that decision at the decide phase at step 5. Or you might decide, you know what? We have exactly what we need without code. We're going to keep going and I'm going to be the CTO. Or we're going to raise money now and we're going to have enough money to hire someone to outsource, whatever it is, right? You get to decide at that step 5. Now, here's the problem, and here's what most people mess up. They try to jump all the way from step 1 to step 4. So they don't know anything about puppeting their app. They don't know anything about automating their app. They want to go directly to, all right, I've got an idea, and now I'm going to custom build the app. And the problem with trying to jump all the way over is that it's so easy to fall into the cracks. This is why a lot of startups fail, and it's particularly why a lot of non-technical entrepreneurs fail with their idea, because they try to jump all the way from step 4 all the way almost to the end. And so when you do that, you just leave way too many opportunities for yourself to fail and fall through the cracks. But if you pace yourself with a paced launch, you're able to give yourself accurate stepping stones that you know you can hit. So just wanted to share what that pace launch looks like. And so now let's dig into each of the letters. So part 1 is to puppet. That's the P for pace. And you know when to puppet when you're just starting, right? When you're just starting, you should be at the puppet phase. Now, for those of you who are building B2C businesses, and for those if you don't know, B2C means business to consumer. So whatever app idea you have, you're going to sell it directly to a customer. So an example of this is Uber, right? Uber sells, customers can directly download the app and use it, right? Their customer is an end consumer, everyday person, right? Or you're going to sell your company, you're going to sell your services, your company's services, or you're going to let sell your company's app to small businesses. So SMB is small businesses. These are just kind of industry terms that you should know. B2C is business to consumer. SMB is small businesses. So for those of you who your customers are going to be consumers or small businesses, here's what you need in order to puppet effectively. You need email or SMS or an SMS text. You need a survey, and I'm not talking about a survey where you're going to go survey people and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? You're actually going to use a survey to collect data from your customers in the same way that an app collects data for customers, right? And you need you, because you are going to puppet a lot of this from the beginning with just puppet strings. Now, let's talk about some ideas of how you could puppet. So a lot of times I talk to people and they're like, I know what I want to build. I want to build an app that kind of works like Uber, but for something else, right? That's something I hear very frequently. So let's say we wanted to build a better Uber, for example. If we wanted to build a better Uber, the first thing that we would do is puppet it. And the way we could do that is we could create a landing page, a website for people to sign up. And it can work very well on a phone. So people just go to the website, and when they need a car, they fill out a quick form. So that's where you'll integrate some sort of survey, for example, right? Come to the website, you clear out a quick form saying where you are, here's my address. And then you can have someone on the other end. It could be yourself, or you can have around-the-clock virtual assistants behind the scene making sure that they send an email or send a message to someone else, a text message, hey, someone's ready, here's their address. Right? You could do that all via text message. In fact, Uber used to use text message a lot, and very effectively run this service to start, just to make sure that there's demand and make sure that it works and make sure people want to do this, right? You could also do the same thing with like a financial calculator. If you have dreams of building this financial calculator app, you could do something similar, right? You could have people input all their information, input all their finance information, and then when they hit submit, you show them a page that says, great, we're calculating your numbers, give us 12 hours to get back to you. And then you could literally go in the background, go in Excel, calculate their numbers and send it back to them, right? So there's all sorts of ways that you can puppet your app, and that's the very first way you should do it. And I'm going to tell you exactly why you should do puppeting in a second. For those of you who are going to sell to enterprises, to big companies, you need to, in order to puppet your app, you need a PowerPoint, a mock-up of your app, and a meeting. Because you just need to go into meetings and say, if I build this, will you buy it? You don't have to build anything first. In fact, in bootcamp, we have a rule that is customers before you build. You have to have customers at your door before you build anything. And it's one of the ways we're able to ensure that all the students, all the entrepreneurs in bootcamp have success and are generating real revenue. So in your PACE launch, we're going to talk about all the different steps and the letters, but the very first thing you need to do is puppet. And your main goal is to answer these 3 questions. Does anyone want this? What features are important? And can I make money? If you are figuring out anything else other than those 3 questions, stop. Your only job right now is to answer those 3 questions. Does anyone want this? What features are important? And can I make money? And a puppeted app can answer all 3 of those questions for you. So I want to show you, this is an example of Patrick. He is an alumni of batch 2 of Apps.co bootcamp. So those of you who are thinking about doing the bootcamp, you will be in batch 4. So Patrick is an alumni of batch 2. And so he had an enterprise app that he wanted to build. He worked in manufacturing industry before he came to bootcamp. And he had an idea for an app that would help manufacturing assembly lines. So these big companies that manufacture things, their assembly lines, he wanted to make them more efficient. And so Patrick puppeted his app. He made $35,000 and got Coca-Cola as his first customer through bootcamp. And so you can see his video he just shared, and he said, Apps.co has really changed my life, and really just the amount that he's able to do in just a couple months, time he's able to spend with his family, etc. So puppet first. Come up with the idea, then puppet. All right, let's talk about the rest of the PACE launch. So step 3 is to automate. And this is where, again, as you move through the PACE launch, it gets fancier and fancier until you get to a more and more developed app. So part 2 is to automate. And you know that you're ready for the automation phase when you have paying customers. You must get paying customers before you jump to this next step. And so the things that you're going to need in this section in order to automate, are you're going to really want to look at logic-based software and simple app builder tools. So logic-based software and app building tools that are simple. And so let me show you a couple of those. So, and by the way, for folks who have questions, I'm going to take questions at the end. I'll be able to go back and kind of drill into anything, but I want to make sure that I'm able to get all this information to you guys. And also, I'm going to have office hours tomorrow that I will tell you about. And so you want to make sure that you're first doing Puppet and then you automate. You want to do one at a time because there's a lot that you'll learn, and I'll talk to you more about that in a second. So, when you're automating, one way to automate is to find logic-based software. So let me show you some examples. So let's say you want to build a recommendation engine, for example. You want to build like a Match.com or something that's going to pair people together, right? You want to show people recommendations, maybe even a dating app, anything like that. So I want to show you the first version. This is actually after I puppeted. This is the first automation version of an app that I built several years ago. And so a couple of years ago, I launched a company called Collecto, and it was an art startup. And so what the art startup did was we helped people find affordable artwork for their home. And I used some tools called Survey, Gizmo, and Typeform and we're going to talk about marketing in a second, guys. So we'll get to how to find customers, how to build a business model. We're going to talk about all of this stuff today. So this is the first version of an app that I built. And what it does is it allows people to see personalized recommendations based on their taste. So what I did was I took a survey and I hacked the survey. I used a survey in an unintended way. And so you can see everybody got their own portal and they got their name on their own portal and it said art recommendations for this person, right? And so this first version of the app that I built in the automation phase got me my first $35,000 in sales and also got me into 500 Startups. It's a prestigious accelerator program in the Bay Area. And at 500 Startups gave us our first $100,000 investment. So just at the automate phase, $35,000 in revenue and $100,000 investment. And this is not uncommon for what I see for startups that we work with. So the other thing you can do is find a simple app builder. So for example, let's say that you wanted to create your own social network, right? You want to create an app where people can talk to each other and communicate with each other, all that good stuff. So here's an example of a tool you could use. It's a simple app builder. This tool is called Mighty Bell, or they've changed their name a little bit to Mighty Networks. And so here's some examples of apps that were built by people without knowing how to write any code. Completely non-technical people built these apps. And so what they have is they have a feed, they have profiles of all the different people in the social network. People can follow each other, unfollow each other, comment on each other's posts. They can direct message to each other. There's polls and there's event boards and all sorts of things happening. And so you can create your own social network app in the automate phase by using a platform like Mighty Networks. And let's say that you had maybe a different app idea. Let's say that you had an idea for an artificial intelligence app, right? You wanted to create artificial intelligence chatbots and you wanted to do something very cool and fancy. So here's a tool that you could use in the automate phase. It's called Motion AI. And so Motion AI allows you to create your own artificial intelligence chatbots so that when someone says, "Hey, how are you?" the bot says, "I'm doing great. How can I help you?" And it knows exactly how to talk to someone. That's what AI is. Artificial intelligence is a robot talking to someone and having a full human conversation, right? So you can do that without code. You don't even need any code to do that either, and you can do it in the automate phase. Let's say that you wanted to build a video game, right? Let's say you wanted to build your own video game. There's a tool called Stencil that allows you to create your own custom video games. And so you create all the logic and all the characters. You can put it on iOS or Android or Windows or wherever you want to put it. Here's an example of a game that was created with Stencil, right? And so what I want to just show to you, the reason I'm showing you just a sampling of some of these tools, here's another one, right? If you have an app idea that has a lot of data, you need a lot of data included in your app, and you're maybe going to sell it to enterprises, or you need a lot of information being stored and saved, maybe a directory, a huge directory of some sort, right? Here's another tool you can look at. It's called AppSheet. AppSheet is another tool you can use. And here's another one called Power Apps. It's built by Microsoft, and so you can see some examples. I'll go back. AppSheet allows you to take a spreadsheet and turn it into an app. So you can instantly take your spreadsheet of information and turn it into an app, which is crazy. And Power Apps allows you to do something really similar. It integrates with all these different things. So you don't have to know exactly what tools you're going to use right now. A lot of the work that we do, in my coaching programs, and a lot of more work that we can do together will be to figure out what's the perfect tool for you to use. I just want to point out to you that so much has changed. So much is available to non-technical people who don't know how to write code. There are all these software tools available to us, right? So when you think about your paced launch, there are all of these separate steps. You puppet the app, you automate it, and then you can custom build it and then decide, do I want to build with code? Do I want to continue hiring developers? What do I want to do, right? You get to make all those decisions about your next steps for your company. But by the time you get to step 5, You already are generating real revenue. You already are getting real customers. You might even have investors on board, whatever it might be. And it's easy for you to make that decision, right? A lot of the problem is people try to make the decision about exactly what to do with their app and the technology way too early. So custom build. You want to custom build when you've made $5,000 plus, right? That's exactly when you want to do stuff like that. And by the way, all of those tools I showed you in the automate phase, most of them cost under $50 a month to use. Most of them are less than $50 a month. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit through some of this because the paste launch is going to allow you to puppet, automate, and then custom build. So what I want to do now is show you really quickly what it looks like to custom build part of an app when you get to this advanced stage. So let's build part of an app together right now using the custom build method. Hold on one second. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I am over in Bubble right now. Bubble, as I mentioned, is my favorite tool for building my own apps without knowing how to code. I'm not a developer. I'm just building cool stuff, and this is my favorite platform to build apps on. So I just want to show you quickly on the left-hand side, because we're going to build a piece of an app right now. So on the left-hand side, you see the Design tab. That's what we're currently looking at. You can just drag and drop things onto your page and design it however you want. If you need a custom design, it's super easy to do that here. Just drag and drop. Then over here on the left-hand side, you see the Workflow tab. There's currently nothing really in my Workflow tab, but I'm going to add if this, then that statements into my Workflow tab right here. I'll show you that in a minute. And then I've also got my database. I can set up my database however I want. So if I want to have users in my app, I want to have locations, anything you want to save about a user, you can save in your data tab. So let's go back to the design tab. Let's build a little piece of an app. I'm going to go kind of fast on this today, but you and I will find some time one-on-one or in one of our group calls. I'll tell you more about those in a moment to talk about step by step how to actually do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here on the top left-hand corner, and I'm going to add a new page. This page I'm looking at right now is just a default Bubble page. I'm going to add a new page, and I'm going to call it Login. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to call it Sign Up and click Create. So it's going to take me over to this new blank page. There's nothing on the page. I haven't designed anything on here yet. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some text and I'm going to drag and drop it here, and I'm just going to say the word Sign Up. We're not going to worry too much about style right now, but I'm just going to make it big font and center it really quickly. Now, there needs to be a place for someone to type in their information when they actually sign up. So to do that, I'm going to come back over here on the left-hand side. Again, all I'm doing right now is dragging and dropping, making this thing live. So input form, I'm going to click input, and I'm going to drag it onto the page. And it's going to say, what do you want your placeholder to be? And for me, let's say that the placeholder is going to be type your name, and the content format is going to be text. Okay, great. So let's do that again for email. So again, I'm going to come over here, grab another input form and drag it right here. And the placeholder is going to be type your email. Again, I'm just dragging and dropping stuff and customizing it for whatever I want it to say. The content format, though, this time, instead of it being text, it's going to be an email. And this is going to make sure that someone doesn't type something that's not an email into this field. It has to be an email. You can't just sign up with some random letters. It has to be your email, right? And then let's grab one last input because someone has to create a password for themselves. So let's drag that in here. Again, I'm not worrying too much about design. I'm just making a really simple page. So type your password. And that content format's going to be password. Really simple. All right, so let's close this. The very last thing on this design tab that I need to do is grab a button, because after you type all this in, you need to click sign up and actually do the action of signing up. So again, I'm going to come over here on the left, grab a button, drag and drop. Again, like this is so easy, guys. And let's call it sign up / get started. I don't know, you can get creative here, whatever you want this to be. So this is my page, nice and designed and pretty. Let's go take a look at it. Bam, there it is. This is preview mode. It's not live yet. It's just test app, and it is looking pretty good. So this is the design tab. Again, I've said if any of you guys need custom designs for your app so it doesn't look like everyone else's, this is how you do it. You just drag and drop stuff onto the page. Super easy. The visual programming stuff I've been talking to you about. So now the problem is, and well, you can actually see, I can type in my name, I can type in my email, I can type in a password, but nothing happens when I click this button. I'm clicking, nothing's happening. So let's actually make something happen when I click this button. So let's go back. Right now we're in a little preview of what the page looks like. Let's go back to the editor. Now I'm back in the editor. You can tell because I've got all these elements that I can drag and drop on the side. So remember I mentioned there is this workflow tab. We've been talking about this whole logic thing, setting up your app with logic. So what we need to do is put some logic on this button, that when someone clicks the button, something else happens. So to do that, let's double click on the button and click Start Edit Workflow. Again, workflow in Bubble is another word for logic. So I'm going to click Start Edit Workflow, and it starts an if this, then that statement for me. Remember, if the domino is pushed, then the other dominoes will fall. If the user clicks the button, then sign them up. That's pretty much what we're doing here. It's not written in code. This stuff is in English. So it literally says when button sign up / get started is clicked. So we want something to happen when that is triggered. When the button is clicked, we want an action to happen. So I'm going to click here to add an action. And I'm going to choose sign the user up. Really simple. And then Bubble has some questions for me. It's like, what email do you want me to use to sign the user up? And what password do you want me to use to sign the user up? So what we want to say is, hey, the user just typed in their email and their password. Whatever they just typed in those input forms, use that to sign them up. So click here, and Bubble's giving me instructions step by step. There's definitely a learning curve as you get fancier on this stuff, but for very simple things like setting up your sign up form, we're going to follow the directions. So email, click here. And again, what we want to save as the person's email is the input that they put in for type your email. Value. So the value of whatever they typed in. This is just Bubble grammar. That's just how they word it, the value. Again, the password, click here, is going to be whatever they typed in as their password. Input, type passwords, value. Boom. Now, if you remember, we also asked the user on that page we just designed for a third thing. We asked them for their name. So we're going to click Save some additional data. And I just realized that my database isn't set up to know names. Emails and passwords just come with the app. So let's quickly go over to the Data tab, and I'm going to create a field in my database so that I can save people's names. Go over to the Data tab. I'm going to click Create a New Field. So this says user already has emails in there. Let's create a new field. It's going to be called Names. Name, and it's just going to be text. So click Create. Think about your database like a spreadsheet. So you've got a spreadsheet of all the users' information, and you've got a huge spreadsheet of emails and names of people who use your app. And then you can have a huge spreadsheet of all types of other custom information for your app as well. But right now we just have users with names and emails. So back on my workflow tab, now we'll see some magic where when I click here, name is now an option for something I can save. So name equals, and then you guessed it, we're going to make whatever they typed in as their name, that value is the name. So recap, We just went on the design tab. We designed all of our elements. We just dragged and dropped. This stuff was super easy. Then we put a workflow on the button. So I double click the button. Here's where the logic comes in. I clicked start edit workflow and it started a logic statement for me. When the button's clicked, then do something. Specifically, when the button's clicked, then sign the user up. So sign them up with their email that they typed in, sign them up with the password they typed in, and sign them up with the name they typed in. Now, let's add one more thing. So when the user is signed up, let's take them to a different page in the app. Usually it's going to be your dashboard. For now, let's just use that default page that Bubble created for us. So let's click here to add another action. Again, you can add an endless number of actions that happen when that button gets clicked, but let's just add one more that is go to page. So navigation, go to page when the user signed up. And it's going to ask, where's the destination? Where do you want me to take you? And we're going to say, just go to the index page. It's another word for home page. Let's just go to the home page right here. So let's go test this thing out. I'm going to click back on that preview I was looking at, or I can click the preview button in the top right-hand corner. And I'm back on my page that I have created. So let's try it out. I'm going to sign up because now my button works. So Tara Reed, that's my name. Here's my email. And here is my password. Sign up and get started. And it's signing me up. And it took me to my home page. It worked. Let's double check and see if it worked though. Let's go back to the editor. And if it worked, then my sign up information is going to be in the database for the app. So let's go see. Click on the database and click app data, view all users, because that's where my users are going to be saved. Let's take a look. We might have to refresh the page if someone is just signed up and there's been a lot of activity. So again, data tab, app data, and there I am. Just signed up, Tara Reed, appswithoutcode.com. We just built a little piece of an app, guys. Pretty cool. So that's how you build a sign up. There's lots of fancy stuff you can do in here, but quick demo, that's how you do it. You can build all sorts of things like algorithms and really, really fancy stuff. You can get really tricky with your workflow and you can get really fancy with some of these elements. This is a really, really beginning version or beginning lesson that I just showed you, but there's some fancy stuff you can do here and there's some fancy customization that I love to teach folks to do. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. That's cool, right? So that's what it looks like to custom build your app. Now, I know for a lot of you guys, you're like, all right, I'm ready to start doing the advanced stuff now. Trust me, you should not do the advanced stuff now if you are not yet at that $5,000 mark. You will spend so much time. I've done this so many times with entrepreneurs. It will waste your time and you will just be sucked down a hole of trying to learn this new software when you don't necessarily need to yet. Don't do that. One of the things I tell people is don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. A lot of you guys are looking way ahead and you're looking at companies and you're like, oh, Zillow, they're so cool. Facebook, they're so cool. Twitter, they're so cool. But they are not at the beginning, right? You're looking at the you want to compare you don't want to compare your beginning to someone else's middle, right? And one of the reasons I just mentioned, the cost of those tools. The whole reason you Puppet first is so that you don't spend $1 on those tools until you have paying customers, right? So it doesn't matter. You can just pay for it, right? So yeah, step 4 is custom build. So the Paste launch, it's 4 simplified versions of your app, right? Paste, Puppet, Automate, Custom Build, and then you get to decide what you're going to do next. That's your Paste launch. Puppet, Automate, Custom Build, decide. And again, your goal here, the only goal you have, does anyone want this? What features are important and can I make money? That is all you're focused on. Because hell is building fancy stuff that nobody uses, right? It's terrible. So you can build an app in just a few weeks by using your Paste launch. You can immediately start puppeting and getting to work.